picture he never explained. The diner was nearly empty except for two old men playing cards near the window and a couple whispering in the corner booth. It was almost closing time, and Clara had just begun cleaning up. She was 23, quiet, and always tired. Every night she wiped the same faded countertop and stacked the same chipped plates. But tonight was different. A man walked in just before midnight. He wore a simple black jacket, jeans, and a gentle expression. His hair was a bit messy and his eyes looked tired but kind. Clara greeted him with a small nod and handed him a menu without looking up. She was too drained to care who he was, but as he said thank you in the softest voice, she froze. She recognized that voice. Clara looked up. Her heart skipped. It was him, Keanu Reeves. Sitting alone in her empty diner, flipping through the worn-out menu like any regular guy. She stared for a second too long before she blinked and turned away, pretending to clean the coffee machine. She had seen celebrities on TV, on social media, but never here. Not in this forgotten corner of Nevada. "Can I get a black coffee, please?" he asked kindly. She nodded, grabbed the pot, and poured the coffee with shaking hands. As she placed it in front of him, their eyes met. He gave her a small smile. She looked down and stepped back. "You okay?" he asked gently. "Yeah, just long shift," she lied. He sipped the coffee slowly. For a while, the only sound was the hum of the old refrigerator and the distant train. Clara tried to act normal, but she couldn't stop glancing at him. Why was he here? Alone. And why tonight, of all nights? After a few minutes, Keanu pulled out his wallet, probably to pay in advance. That's when it happened. Something slid out with the bills. A photograph. Clara saw it before he did. Her hands went cold. It was a picture of a woman. Not just any woman. Her mother. The photo was old, worn at the edges. Her mother was young in it, smiling beside a cherry blossom tree. Clara remembered that photo. It used to sit on their living room table until her mom disappeared 15 years ago. No one ever found her. No answers. No goodbyes. Clara reached forward without thinking. "Wait, where did you get that?" Keanu looked up, surprised. "What? That photo? That's my mom." Keanu stared at the picture. His face shifted slowly. Shock, confusion, something else she couldn't read. "Your mom?" he whispered. "Her name was Lucy. Lucy Elridge. She disappeared when I was 8. Clara's voice cracked, but she kept going. "We never found out what happened. Police said she ran away, but I never believed that." Keanu looked down at the picture again. He didn't speak. The diner suddenly felt colder. "Why do you have that?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. He looked up. There was sorrow in his eyes now. Real sorrow. I don't know how to explain," he said quietly. Clara's chest tightened. "Please try." He hesitated, then slowly returned the photo to his wallet. He set the wallet on the table, closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "Your mother saved my life," he said. The room spun. Clara gripped the counter to keep from falling. "What are you talking about?" Keanu leaned forward. His voice was barely above a whisper. "Years ago, before I became known, I was at my lowest. I had nothing. I was walking through a small town, no money, no hope, and one woman, one stranger gave me something no one else did. Kindness." Clara's eyes welled up. "That was her?" He nodded. "She gave me food, a place to rest. She told me not to give up. She said, even stars need darkness to shine." Clara gasped. "She used to tell me that too." He smiled faintly. "I never forgot those words. I asked her name, she just said Lucy. I didn't see her again after that day, but she changed my life." Clara wiped her tears. "So why do you still carry her photo?" Keanu's eyes softened. "To remind me that kindness from a stranger can save a life, and to keep me humble. I owe everything to her." The diner was silent again. The world outside kept moving, but inside, time had stopped. Clara sat across from him, Her hands were still shaking. She stared at him, trying to understand the twist. Her life had just taken. Do you know where she is now? She asked. Keanu's expression darkened slightly. No, but I've been looking. Clara leaned back, all these years thinking her mother abandoned her, and now this. The weight of it crushed her. If she's out there, she whispered, I have to find her. Keanu nodded slowly. Then let's find her. The sentence hung in the air, like a promise. Clara had spent her life waiting for a sign. Tonight it came in the form of a man with quiet eyes and a photograph no one could explain. But the truth was only beginning. Old roads, buried secrets. The next morning, Clara didn't show up for her usual shift. Instead, she packed a small bag, tucked her mother's childhood photo album into it, and stepped outside into the golden morning light. Keanu was already waiting at the corner, leaning against a black motorcycle. He wasn't dressed like a celebrity, just jeans, boots, and a faded t-shirt. His hair was tucked beneath a cap, and he looked like any other traveler passing through. But to Clara, he was the key to a life she never got to live. You sure about this? He asked softly as she walked up. She nodded. I've waited 15 years. I'm not waiting anymore. They hit the road before the town even blinked awake. The sky stretched wide and quiet over the desert highway, and Clara stared out the window as buildings gave way to dust and silence. She didn't know where to start or what to expect, but she had Keanu beside her, and that was enough for now. So where do we go first? She asked. He glanced at her. There's a place, a small town near Reno. I was there the last time I saw her. Clara gripped her seatbelt tighter. You think she's still there? I don't know, he said, but there's someone who might. As they drove, Keanu told her more about that day. Your mom worked at a bookstore back then, he said. I was broke and hadn't eaten in 2 days. I went in just to get out of the heat. She saw me sitting by the door and brought me a sandwich, didn't even ask questions. Clara smiled through the pain. That sounds like her. She gave me a book too. Said it changed her life. Something about healing and hope. I read it so many times the cover fell off. Clara reached into her bag and pulled out the same book. She gave it to me on my 7th birthday. Keanu looked at it with wide eyes. You kept it. I never stopped reading it, even when it hurt. They arrived in Reno just as the sun dipped below the horizon. Neon lights flickered to life. They stopped at a small inn on the edge of town, and Keanu helped carry her things inside. The room was modest, but clean. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the worn photograph. Do you think she left because of me? She asked quietly. Keanu shook his head. No. Whatever happened, I believe she was trying to protect you. Clara frowned. From what? Keanu hesitated. Then, after a long pause, he said, There were men looking for her that day. Clara froze. What kind of men? I don't know. They asked questions about her. Said she took something that didn't belong to her. She left town that same night. I didn't see her again. Clara's mind spun. What could she have taken? Keanu looked at the photo in her hand. Maybe not something. Maybe someone. Maybe she was hiding someone important. The room fell silent. The next morning, they went to the bookstore. It had been turned into a tattoo parlor, but the owner remembered Lucy. She was sweet, the man said. Real smart. Used to talk about stars and poetry. Disappeared one night. No one knew why. Clara asked if anyone had kept in touch with her. The man pointed them to a retired sheriff named Malcolm, who lived a few miles out of town. They drove to a cabin in the hills. Malcolm answered the door with a weathered face and wary eyes. When Clara mentioned Lucy Elridge, he stepped outside and closed the door behind him. Why are you asking about her? He said, voice low. I'm her daughter, Clara said. Malcolm studied her face. Something in him softened. You've got her eyes. He looked at Keanu. And you're the actor, right? Keanu nodded. I'm just here to help. Malcolm sighed. Come with me. They followed him behind the cabin to a shed, filled with old boxes. He pulled out one marked Lucy E. and dusted it off. I kept these in case someone ever came looking. Inside were old notes, journals, and newspaper clippings. One article stood out. It was about a child protection case. Lucy had once fostered a girl who vanished under mysterious circumstances. Authorities had closed the case, saying the child ran away, but Lucy had written letters, pleas for help that no one listened to. She wasn't running from the law, Malcolm said. She was running from the people the law couldn't touch. Clara flipped through the pages with shaking hands. There were drawings, notes written to C, and one letter she hadn't seen before. My dear Clara, if you're reading this, it means you found your way to the truth. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I had to protect you. Some things were too dangerous and I couldn't risk them reaching you. I've watched from afar. I've never stopped watching. And I've never stopped loving you. One day, if the time is right, you'll find me. The letter ended with a number and an address. Clara covered her mouth as tears spilled from her eyes. Keanu placed a hand on her shoulder. She's still out there. Clara nodded slowly. We have to find her. They left the cabin with the box, their hearts heavier but clearer. Every mile now had meaning. Every step brought them closer to a truth long buried beneath fear and silence. But what they didn't know was that someone else was also watching. Someone who had never forgotten Lucy. Someone who didn't want the truth to surface. As the sun vanished behind the hills, Clara's phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. The message read, "Stop digging. You don't know what you're waking up." Clara looked at Keanu. He took her hand. "We keep going," he said. The shadow she left behind the hotel room felt colder than it should. Clara sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone, the text message still glowing on the screen. Her heart thudded like a slow drumbeat in her chest. "Stop digging. You don't know what you're waking up." Keanu stood across the room, arms folded, his eyes focused but calm. He had seen threats before, lived through danger that most people only watched in movies, but this felt different. Personal. Heavier. "Do you think this is connected to those men from before?" Clara asked softly. Keanu nodded. "It feels the same." "What if she's in danger?" Clara's voice cracked. "What if we're putting her in more danger by looking?" He walked over and sat beside her. "Or maybe we're finally giving her a way out." Clara looked at him. Her eyes were filled with fear but also a quiet fire. The same fire that kept her working long hours, that helped her survive the years without a mother. And now, that fire refused to let her walk away. "Let's go to the address," she said. The address from the letter led them to a rural town called Red Hollow, tucked deep between mountain ranges. It didn't appear on many maps. Cell service dropped the moment they passed the town sign. Wooden houses lined the roads, their fences leaning with age. It looked like time had forgotten the place. They checked into the only motel. The woman at the front desk watched them closely. "You folks just passing through?" she asked. Clara nodded. "Looking for someone." The woman gave a tight smile. "Red Hollow's not much for strangers." As they stepped out, Keanu whispered, "This place has secrets." They followed the letter's address to an old farmhouse at the edge of town. Overgrown bushes lined the walkway. The windows were dusty. The gate creaked as they stepped inside. Clara knocked. No answer. She knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing. "Maybe she moved," she whispered. Keanu walked around to check the back. He found a small shed with a rusted lock. The grass looked trampled as if someone had been there recently. He came back to find Clara still staring at the door. "What if she was here?" "Just a few days ago?" she asked. Suddenly, the door opened, slowly. It wasn't her mother. It was a man in his late 50s. Tired eyes, worn hands. He stared at Clara like he was seeing a ghost. "You look just like her," he said quietly. "You knew her?" Clara stepped forward. He nodded. Lucy lived here, for a while. I helped her settle in. Where is she now? She asked quickly. Gone. Disappeared 6 months ago. No goodbye. No trace. Clara's stomach dropped. Did she say anything before she left? Anything at all? Keanu asked. The man stepped aside. Come in. The inside of the house smelled like dust and memories. Picture frames were turned face down. Shelves were bare. But in the corner, a small table still held a notebook. The man handed it to Clara. She wrote in it sometimes. Maybe it'll help you. Clara opened the pages. Her mother's handwriting danced across them in rushed, emotional strokes. I saw him again today. Tall, dark coat, watching me from across the road. Same eyes, same threat. I think they found me. Another entry read, I miss Clara. Every day. I hear her voice in my sleep. I want to go back. But if I do, they'll follow me. They'll hurt her. Maybe worse. Clara's eyes blurred with tears. She had imagined her mother forgetting her, moving on, starting a new life. But here, in these pages, were all the truths she had never been told. Her mother had never stopped thinking about her. She had never stopped loving her. On the final page, a small note was tucked in. It was a torn piece from a newspaper article. The headline read, Tech company whistleblower vanishes after leak. Beneath the article, a line written in red ink. They think I know something. Maybe I do. Maybe that's why I'll never be safe. Keanu frowned. This is bigger than we thought. Clara looked at him. What do you mean? If your mom exposed something dangerous, and then the people after her might still be watching. And if they saw us come here. His words were cut off by a knock at the door. 3 slow, heavy knocks. The man who lived there froze. Keanu signaled Clara to stay back. He opened the door. 2 men in suits stood outside. We're looking for Lucy Elridge, one said calmly. She doesn't live here anymore. Keanu answered from the doorway. And you are? The man asked. Just a friend. The second man's eyes narrowed. You were seen at the old sheriff's house yesterday, with a young woman. We'd like to speak with her. Keanu didn't move. She's not available. The man smirked. You might want to rethink that. As they turned and walked back to their black car, Clara stepped out. Who were they? She whispered. Keanu's jaw was tight. Not the kind of people who knock twice. They packed up immediately and drove out of town. Keanu stayed silent for the first half hour. Clara gripped the journal like it was a lifeline. Finally, she said, We're not safe, are we? He shook his head. Not yet. But why? Why would they still care after all these years? Keanu glanced at her. Because your mom didn't just know something. She left behind proof, and if we find it, they'll do anything to stop us, Clara finished. They stopped at a gas station an hour later. Clara went inside while Keanu stayed by the car. Inside the station, a payphone rang. Clara paused. No one else was around. It kept ringing. She slowly picked it up. A voice on the other end whispered, If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow. 7 p.m. at the broken bridge west of town. Come alone. Then silence. She stepped outside, heart pounding. Keanu saw her face and walked up. What happened? Clara looked at him, her voice shaky. Someone just called. They know her, and they want to meet. Where? She told him. He didn't speak for a while. Then he said, We'll go, but not alone. The truth was getting closer, but so was the danger. The broken bridge and the voice in the dark. The air near the bridge smelled of rust and river stones. Mist curled around the edges of the dried-up creek, and trees loomed like silent watchers. The sun had set, but the sky still held a trace of fire orange and dusky violet. Clara stood at the edge of the cracked old bridge, heart racing, fingers tight around her mother's journal. Keanu waited nearby, hidden behind a cluster of trees, out of sight but close enough to step in if anything went wrong. She had insisted on meeting the caller alone. They agreed on signals. If something felt off, she would drop her scarf. If danger struck, Keanu wouldn't wait. The wind stirred as a figure stepped out from the shadows. He was older, with deep lines around his eyes and a limp in his left leg. He wore a brown coat too thick for spring. He kept looking over his shoulder. "You came," he said softly. "You called me?" Clara replied, voice steady though her throat burned. "You're Lucy's daughter." "Yes. Where is she?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled a folded paper from his coat and handed it to her. "She trusted me once. Long time ago. She knew they were watching her. She said if anything happened, I should give this to you." Clara unfolded the page. It was a hand-drawn map. Red marks pointed to a location in the mountains, far from any known trail. Beside it, in her mother's handwriting, were the words, "Truth lives in silence. Bring the girl only when she's ready." Clara looked up. Ready for what? The man's eyes were tired, ready to learn what she was willing to lose everything to protect. What was it? What truth? He glanced around nervously. "Your mother worked for a company, big tech, government contracts, hidden labs. She discovered something. They weren't just tracking people, they were experimenting, illegally, on children." Clara's breath caught. What kind of experiments? Enhancement, control, trying to turn trauma into programming. They were using orphans, kids no one would miss. Clara felt like the ground was shaking. "How do you know this?" He looked straight at her. "I was one of them." For a long moment she couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She helped me escape, hid me for months. They found out. She had to vanish. "Why didn't she come home?" Clara whispered, eyes burning. "Because if she did, they'd have used you against her. They knew everything. Names, schools, your favorite color." Clara's legs weakened. She held the bridge railing. "Where is she now?" she asked again. He hesitated. "Last I heard, she was headed to the mountains. She found someone who had a full list of the children. Evidence. She was going to protect it, or die trying. Then, headlights. Fast. Coming from the forest trail behind the bridge." The man's eyes widened. "You were followed." He shoved a small drive into Clara's hand. "This has proof. Get out." Before she could react, a dark van screeched to a stop. 3 men in black tactical gear jumped out. Clara dropped her scarf. Keanu burst from the trees like thunder. He didn't wait. His fist cracked into the first man's jaw, sending him to the ground. The second one rushed toward Clara. She ducked, swung her bag, and hit him square in the ribs. The third aimed something, some kind of dart gun, but Keanu kicked it from his hands before it fired. Sirens echoed suddenly. Red and blue lights painted the sky. Someone had called the police. The men scrambled, one limping away, the others dragging each other into the van. They sped off, disappearing into the forest before the cops even arrived. Clara ran to the older man, but he was already on his knees, breathing hard. They won't stop," he rasped. "We'll protect you," she said, trying to hold his hand. He shook his head. "No, protect her. Protect the truth." He passed out. The police questioned them for over an hour, but Keanu handled most of it, said they were hiking, got jumped. No names, no details. Clara kept the drive hidden deep in her sock. Back in their motel, Clara plugged it into Keanu's laptop. It opened instantly. Videos, documents, photos of terrified children, files marked property of Division 23. One name repeated across several pages, Lucy Elridge. Keanu scrolled through silently. "She knew," he whispered. "She knew everything." There was a folder named The Girl. Clara opened it. Photos of her, as a baby, as a child, school records, hospital visits, audio files of her speaking in therapy, her mother's letters. "They were watching me too," Clara said, voice hollow. "This is why she vanished," Keanu replied. "To protect you." Clara buried her face in her hands. "I thought she abandoned me. She was saving you." Keanu sat beside her. He didn't speak, he didn't have to. His presence was enough. When morning came, they packed again. The map led to the High Sierras, a stretch of forest that few dared to cross. No signals. No signs. Just silence. "Do you think she's still alive?" Clara asked as they drove. Keanu glanced at her. "I think if anyone could survive, it's her." They followed the back roads into higher ground. By sunset, they reached the last point their car could go. From here, they would have to hike. Steep trails, rocky terrain, cold winds. But Clara didn't care. She was ready to find her mother, to find the truth, even if it broke her. The silence in the mountains. They started the climb before dawn, when the stars still blinked overhead and the earth felt quiet, untouched. The forest was thick with pine, the air cold and sharp in their lungs. Clara followed the map step by step while Keanu walked behind, always scanning the surroundings. They had no cell service, no road back. Just a journal, a flash drive full of secrets, and a map hand-drawn by a woman who vanished to protect her daughter. The hike grew harder after the first hour. They crossed narrow ledges, clung to twisted roots, and ducked under low-hanging branches. Every sound made Clara flinch. The snap of a twig, the rustle of leaves. She kept imagining someone watching them from the trees. By midday, they reached a clearing. "This is it," Clara whispered, staring at the map. "This is where the X was." It didn't look like much, just a flat stretch of grass surrounded by towering rocks. A quiet stream trickled nearby. Birds chirped in the distance. But something felt wrong. Keanu walked slowly toward a rock wall. He placed his hand against the stone, paused, then tapped it. A dull echo. He turned to Clara. "This wall's hollow." Together, they cleared away moss and loose stone. After 10 minutes of digging, they found it. A metal door, covered in rust. It had no handle, just a keypad. A faded sticker on the edge read, "Property of Division 23. Clara looked at the keypad. "How do we open it?" Keanu stepped back. "Let's think." Clara pulled out her mother's journal. She flipped through the pages, looking for clues. Halfway through, she found a line circled in red ink. "The stars remember." She stared at it, then looked up at the sky. Stars. Her mother always loved stars, always made her memorize constellations. "Orion," Clara whispered. She typed "Orion" into the keypad. A click. The door creaked open. They stepped inside. Cold air rushed out like a sigh from the past. The tunnel was narrow and dark, lit only by a thin beam from Keanu's flashlight. They walked in silence, footsteps echoing. Every turn brought more questions. Then the tunnel widened into a small, underground shelter. It looked like someone had lived there. A cot, a desk, old food supplies, books, and photos, lots of them, pinned to a board. Most were of Clara, school plays, birthdays, moments she never knew were being watched. Clara trembled. As she stepped closer, she was here all along. Keanu picked up a photo. "She never left you." Clara walked over to the desk. There was a folder marked "Final Statement." Inside, a letter. "My sweet Clara, if you've made it here, then you've grown into the woman I always believed you'd be. Brave, kind, unstoppable. I wish I could hold you right now. I wish I could tell you everything in person. But if I'm not with you, then it means they came back. I left behind everything. The files. The evidence. The truth. And I stayed hidden because of you. Because they would have used you to break me. I watched you from afar. Every birthday, every school performance. I was there. Just never close enough. I am so sorry. The world doesn't know the full truth. They covered it up, buried the project, erased the records. But the children, they're still out there, and they deserve justice. Clara, if you choose to share the truth, they will come for you, but you will also save lives. And if by some miracle you find me, tell me you're proud of me. Because I've never stopped being proud of you. Clara couldn't read anymore. The paper trembled in her hands. Her knees gave out, and she sank to the floor. Keanu knelt beside her. She loved you. So much. I want her back, Clara whispered through sobs. Keanu placed an arm around her shoulder. Then we'll find her. We're not done yet. As they searched the shelter, they found a locked cabinet. Inside were old tapes, hard drives, and a black box labeled Unit 7 Survivors. These were the children. Names, photos, recordings of experiments, screams, medical logs. Evidence that could take down entire institutions. Keanu stared at the files. This could change everything. We need to go, Clara said. We need to get this somewhere safe. They packed everything they could. As they stepped back into the forest, Clara looked around one last time. Do you think she's still alive? Before Keanu could answer, they heard a sound. Movement in the trees. They turned. A woman stepped into the clearing, long brown coat. Scarf, eyes filled with tears. Clara? The woman whispered. Clara froze. She knew that voice. Mom? She whispered. Lucy. Elridge stepped forward. Older, thinner, but still glowing with the same light. Clara ran. They met in the middle of the clearing, arms wrapped around each other. Years of pain melting in a single embrace. I never stopped, Lucy said, sobbing. I never stopped watching you. And I never stopped needing you, Clara whispered. Keanu stepped back, giving them space, his eyes wet. But before the moment could settle, Lucy pulled back. They know, she said, voice suddenly sharp. They're coming, we have minutes. What do we do? Clara asked. Lucy looked at her, steady and calm. We run, but we don't hide. Not anymore. Behind them, the sky rumbled, helicopters. The truth had found its voice, and it was about to be louder than anyone expected. The voice that couldn't be silenced. The sound of rotor blades grew louder. The treetops swayed from the gusts, and birds scattered into the pale sky. The mountain air, once cold and quiet, now trembled with the weight of everything that was coming. Lucy stood between Clara and Keanu, her coat flapping in the wind. Her eyes were sharp, alert. She wasn't just a mother anymore. She was the keeper of a truth the world tried to erase. We have one chance, Lucy said. Down the ridge, there's a ranger station. It has satellite access. If we get there, we can upload everything. What if they shut it down? Clara asked, her voice trembling. Lucy reached into her coat and pulled out a small metal drive. This is the backup. It's got names, locations, testimonies. It'll shake the ground they stand on. Keanu glanced behind them. Then let's move. They sprinted down the rocky slope, dodging low branches, slipping on damp leaves. Clara's legs burned, but she kept going, driven by something stronger than fear. Justice. Truth. Her mother. Behind them, black-clad figures dropped from the sky. Their boots slammed into the earth and shouts echoed through the woods. They were closing in. The ranger station came into view like a lifeline. Small, wooden, powered by a tall satellite dish. Lucy ran ahead, fumbled with the key around her neck and threw open the door. Keanu helped Clara inside and shoved the door shut behind them. Barricade it, he shouted. They dragged a desk across the entrance just as fists slammed into the wood. Lucy rushed to the terminal, typing fast. Lines of code flashed. The satellite began to spin above them. Uploading, she said. 40%. How long? Keanu asked. 4 minutes. Clara stood guard at the window, clutching the black box with the evidence. They're all around us. Keanu grabbed a metal rod and stood beside her. They'll have to go through me. Lucy kept typing, voice steady. 60%. A bang. Smoke filled the room. One of the windows shattered. Tear gas. Clara coughed and dropped to her knees. Keanu pulled her up and shoved a towel into her face. Breathe. Through this, Lucy kept going. 85%. A bullet shattered the door's top hinge. The desk shook. Another hit. Keanu lunged forward, swung the rod, and knocked back the first man who broke through. Clara reached for a flare gun on the wall and fired into the air through the broken window. Bright red flames lit the sky. They didn't notice the second helicopter coming until it was nearly overhead. But this one wasn't black. It was silver and marked with the state police emblem. Lucy looked up. Someone saw the signal. A loudspeaker roared, "This is the state police. Drop your weapons." Within minutes, the black-clad men began to retreat. Ropes flew up. Boots scrambled. The ones on the ground were quickly surrounded by officers in green and blue uniforms. Lucy turned back to the screen. Upload complete. She collapsed into the chair, eyes closing as tears streamed down her cheeks. "It's done," she whispered. "It's finally done." 2 weeks later, the world watched in shock as news outlets broke the story. Headlines flooded every screen. Division 23 exposed. Secret experiments on orphans revealed. Mother and daughter reunite after 15 years of silence and shadows. Keanu Reeves helps uncover hidden government scandal. Clara sat beside her mother on a morning news broadcast, their hands intertwined. The anchor leaned forward. "Clara, what made you keep going even when it felt hopeless?" She looked at Lucy, then at the camera. "Love, and the belief that the truth matters more than fear." The world applauded. Weeks passed. The investigations led to arrests, trials, reforms. The whistleblowers who had been silenced were finally heard. The children who had survived the experiments began to step forward one by one, their voices steady, their pain no longer hidden. Lucy was cleared of all charges and honored for her bravery. She and Clara moved into a small home near the coast, quiet, warm, peaceful. Every evening they watched the sunset together, never taking it for granted. Keanu visited often. He refused interviews, refused fame. When asked why he helped, he only ever said, "Because kindness saved me once." It was time to return the favor. One night, Clara sat on the porch with him, staring at the stars. "Do you think the world will change now?" she asked. He looked up. "I think it already has, because one person chose to carry the truth, even when it almost destroyed her." Clara smiled, and another chose to believe her. They sat in silence, watching the sky. Somewhere inside, Lucy added the last photo to her wall, not one of fear, not one of hiding. This time, it was a photo of her, Clara, and Keanu, laughing, arms around each other, free at last. Beneath it, she wrote one simple line: "Truth cannot be buried, not when love is brave enough to find it."